Well, the spring game finally is almost here, and we've got a lot of different things to watch for. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Like, comment, subscribe, please, and thank you wherever you listen to or watch this show. We're almost to 2,400 on YouTube, hundreds more on podcast. Thank you all so very, very much. Can we talk about a spring game the day before it takes place without Rian Winter? I don't think so. He's at Sports Chat 503 on Twitter and YouTube. We wouldn't do that. We can't have spring game week just come and go without my man Ryan, who's got this wonderful, for those of you listening, classic UO logo on the left side of his jacket. Oh my goodness.
With
the Rose Bowl.
The best patch you can get, right?
The best patch you can get on the jacket. Ryan's locked and loaded, ready to go. Let's hop right into it, Ryan. Your biggest storylines, biggest things to watch for in your view going into the spring game.
Yeah, I think it's that, the offense, the new offensive coordinator. They're going to throw the ball like they did last year. That was the big story. And then defense, can you put pressure on the QB, man? I just think that's a big deal. Spring game is kind of weird to see that because you don't tackle the quarterback, but at least you can bust up some coverages and whatnot. And I think to see some energy on the defensive line, getting to the quarterback, and to see the quarterback putting the ball in the air. Two things I want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember there was a great meme last year when that first play happened, which was a downfield shot to Seven McGee. And, they've had all these posts going around of like, welcome back to Autzen Stadium. Insert player who's coming back, and Mariota and Javon Holland are the coaches, and they had a welcome back thing. And after that first play, someone made a meme of welcome back to Autzen Stadium, the forward pass. That was fun. But yeah, I laughed pretty hard at that. But I don't think we're going to have that sort of stuff going around this year. I think we could maybe say welcome back pressure on the quarterback, welcome back explosive safety play. But there are only about 50 different individual positions and players that I'm watching for here, Ryan. I don't have a lot of questions about the quarterback. I don't have a lot of although Ty Thompson, I would love to see.
I was about to say.
I would love to see where he is at and whether or not there has been improvement in the offseason, because last year, of course, we were all underwhelmed. But running backs, I feel like I know what I got there. Receivers, there's one compelling element there. That's the slot receiver position battle between Chris Hudson and Tez Johnson. I tell you what, offensively, I'm excited to see, Ryan. This is going to come a little bit out of nowhere, but kind of not. We're going to see a lot of Kenyon Sadiq, aren't we?
Probably. I mean, right out of the gate, you would assume, one side and the other. So, yeah, I would. I mean, my thing is, it's really interesting, when you start thinking about like the big picture of what do you want out of an offense, right? And what did you get out of last year's offense? You saw a bunch of 2 tight end sets. So now when you're down a tight end, you might be able to look for, what does that do to your play calling? What does that do to some of the structure of your offense? And it's going to be interesting how they work with that. I definitely think they're going to be cautious, and they're probably going to run some basic stuff. They don't put a lot of crazy stuff on film for spring games, but they do have fun with it, and they do have fun with spring games, and they kind of let it loose. And it's the first time the guys get to really hit, for a while. And so I think the guys look forward to it, and it'll be a beautiful day. That's the other thing. The weather is going to hold out for us over here.
Never rains,
buddy.
Never rains.
It has been so freaking cold up here this year. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be hot. It's going to be popping. The beer's going to be flowing. Baseball game afterward. It's going to be a good day.
Yeah, it should be fantastic. I lament that I will not be up there tomorrow. Ryan, of course, will be there. If you want to go find him, go seek him out. He's not a hard guy to find, right?
No, but I'm not printing shirts like Dion.
You don't have a shirt that says
I'm here that says I'm not hard to find. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm right here.
He'll just walk around with his big 6'2", 250-pound frame and just kind of be this big,
be that guy.
Imposing presence.
Yeah, I'm just that dude.
I want to get your thoughts on some individual position group battles. I mentioned one, Tez Johnson against Chris Hudson. Who can can one outshine the other? I get the feeling that's going to be a 50-50 split by the time that the season rolls around, but I'm interested to see how Tez goes up against a Power 5 defense. But defensively, who stands out at corner, who stands out at safety, and what are the linebacker pairings? Those are kind of my three big questions there. After the one that you pose, which is, can they get pressure on the quarterback? Yeah, that's an obvious question. But if you're talking about players and positions to watch, linebackers, what are the pairings? Corners, who stands out? Safeties, how do they mix and match?
Yeah, so, I look to the spring game to, one, you want to see how the starters play, but you also want to see those backups. You want to see the kind of 2 deep, 3 deep, or whatever else. The green team has Jamal Hill and Connor Soule on it. Be interesting to see those two in tandem. I think Bossa is the original guy who you think you're going to get because he's the most versatile linebacker. He's been around. But it's really going to be interesting to see how they transition with Jamal Hill. Because, again, just a freaky good athlete, super smart football player. It's going to be good to see the corners. I don't know, man. I think Triquez had a really good end of the year last year. I think he finished off strong. I think he got
second half was good. Yep.
Taken advantage of early in the year. And it was kind of a little bit of a, I don't know. I wouldn't say the problem, but I would say one of the pieces that they were struggling with. But, I tend to think Dante Manning's going to have a big year. And I think that he's going to be one of those guys to look forward to. He's played a lot of football. So you should hope this would be a breakout year for him. So DBs, safeties, I kind of like, the Williams connection, right? Evan Williams, Bennett Williams. A lot of guys have talked about how good he is in the room and how well he's adjusted to the team and how similar he is to Bennett. And so Evan Williams is going to be another guy I feel like you can watch for. And also you get to see the young guys, like Cody DeCambria is a guy that they mentioned numerous times. The coaches mentioned numerous times. So, that's another guy in the safety room that'd be kind of fun to watch for. And he'll get minutes. These guys will all get minutes in the spring game.
Yeah, that's one thing I love about it. And also I love the way they're structuring this too, that you've got some first teamers and some second teamers on either side. Mm-hmm. And you'll get to see plenty of bodies in there. Because with guys like Cody DeCambria or Tyler Turner or Cole Martin or I don't think Dalen Austin is here right now, but just go down the list of young guys, Kenyon Sadiq. We have half an idea of what they can be because we see them as high school recruits. But this is the first time, really the only time, I think, for some of these guys that will have any inclination of what their careers could actually end up being. Because you'll see some players in this game, and heck, with all the safeties in the room, DeCambria might be one of them, that we might see him get some live reps, but then he only plays in garbage time this year, so we don't have that much of an idea. It's just such a great insight and a peek behind the curtain for Oregon fans to get an idea of what these players are and what they could be down the line.
I agree. I think guys are really set up pretty well in the defense. I think you're going to see big year from Brian Addison. I think you're going to see a lot of guys on the back end play much better than they did last year. I have high hopes for this defense. And again, if the defense is good, I think the defense up front looks good. The depth, it feels like, is up front. So now, that had been an issue before. So now it's about whether or not you can handle the pressure and handle the injuries coming forward. But, springtime's always fun. It's fun to see the two guys on either side. It's fun to kind of, split them. Like you said, Bo Nix on one side, Ty Thompson on the other. They put Tez on the side with Ty. There's just kind of fun stuff like that where it's like you can kind of mix and match guys. And for the coaches, this is also really fun. Coaches have done this a variety of ways. They've done drafts. They've done this, that. Who's the first player off the board in the draft? They've done it all. It's kind of fun part of spring ball, right? I know as a coach, one of the things you do over and over and over and over and over is lineups. You're just constantly reworking lineups, just like, what could this look like? What could this look if we were in this situation? What would this look like? And if this situation, what would this look like? And that's why it feels like when they do the starters for Don Essig, he runs through like 15 different starters. It's like, Don, there's only 11 guys on the field, but like at the other running back, it's like, because there's so many different sets out there. And yes, he's a starter for this grouping, but maybe not for that grouping. And so.
Yeah, I think it's set up to be a lot of fun. You made me think of a question that I want to ask you, but one that I want to ask all of you is, why haven't you gone and checked out Built Bars yet? What are you waiting for? Because if you want a delicious snack, but you don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need the best tasting protein bar ever. That's Built. You got to try Built. They're healthy. They taste amazing. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They have a bunch of unbelievably great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. I'm a mint brownie guy through and through. Always have been, always will be, but I love other ones too. Not going to apologize for it. That's right. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, a whopping 17 grams of protein. They're always in my pantry. There's always at least one in my golf bag to keep me going out on the links. Go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club while you can. Get your specialty flavors still at built.com. Walmart, Sam's Club, built.com. Get your next order of Built bars today.
I know it might not look like it, but I do try to keep, my figure in check. And, I want to limit my sugar, but I am drawn to the churro flavor.
Oh, dude. A churro puff is out of bounds, as Guy Fieri would say.
Yeah.
It's absolutely all the Guy Fieri sayings. Gangster, out of bounds, outrageous, all that sort of stuff. All right, here's my question for you, Ryan. Okay. If you were drafting this spring roster and you had to take a non-quarterback with the first overall pick, because if you had the number 1 pick, you'd probably take Bo Nix, right? I like that. That's who I would take. Quarterback's most important position, right? Non-quarterback on either side. If you were doing a fantasy draft of this spring roster, who is your number 1 overall pick?
Non-quarterback. It's always fun to take a lineman, like Connerly. I think he would be up there. But it's probably a guy, maybe if you're going to go offense, it's probably a guy like Troy Franklin. Because the guy is like with, if you want to pair somebody up with your quarterback, that's kind of your guy, right? But of course, if you're like a real GM and you're building your team and all that sort of stuff, you got to build from the outside out, or inside out. But I think a guy like Franklin is a huge difference maker, especially for Bo. I think he gives him a lot of confidence. I think the way that Troy runs his routes, I think is maybe beneficial. I think he's a big bodied guy. I think he really, he has that beautiful combination of being like, tall enough, but not too tall, really athletic, really strong with his hands. Go-getter. He wants the ball. He wants to be great. He's energetic. He engages with the fan base. He gets it, And I think those are the guys who have the it factor. And that's who I'm looking for. If I was a GM for the NFL, I would want to ask some of the weird questions because I want to see the psychology of the guy. I know what he can do on film. I've seen the film. I can see him bench press. I can see all that. I want to see the interaction. I want to see where does he stand on something, or how does he feel about this, or what would he do if this? That to me makes way more sense. Similar in a job interview, I would care way more about the personality of the person rather than their actual skill set. We can work on the skill set.
Yeah, I think Franklin would be a pretty good pick. I would probably lean towards Connerly, just because
you're building your.
Yeah, you got to have a great quarterback. You got to protect your quarterback, right? It's the Colin Cowherd rules for life, and you got to make their quarterback uncomfortable. And speaking of which, along the defensive line, 3 guys I'm most intrigued to see. I don't know that I could rank one above the other. I want to see what we have here in Jordan Birch, the South Carolina transfer.
Absolutely.
I want to see Mateo.
Yep.
Because a lot of hype, a lot of promise there. He looks physically ready.
Love the ceiling.
Love the ceiling, but the floor could definitely be something that helps Oregon a lot this season. And the third guy, Ryan, kind of unheralded here. I want to see how good Popo looks coming off the injury. This was a highly productive, high-quality defensive lineman, great run stuffer, solid against the pass, but really was a guy who was pronounced in just swallowing up double teams, getting into the backfield, being disruptive. If he's back to what he was in 2021, that is a big-time addition to this Ducks defensive line, which we know struggled last year.
Yeah, so Popo and Jordan on the same team, on that green team with Jamal Hill. I kind of like that. I really love the offensive-defensive line. It's what I know best. It's what I actually played when I was in high school a little bit. I mean, I played linebacker as well, but I loved the defensive line. I loved the close combat. I kind of love what you get away with in there. And Popo's a guy who's a real steady Eddie in there. He'll get you the run stop, but he can put pressure on. We saw has some really good games he's played. I mean, that Washington game up there in the rain, amazing game. I mean, he's had some good. He's been around too, right?
Yep.
I mean, with the extra year, and I mean, so I'm really excited for football. And I just there are certain guys I kind of lean toward. I have maybe better relationship with. And I don't have too deep of a relationship with these guys, but I do text guys. I do connect with guys over time. And, Popo's just such a quality individual, man. He's just such a quality guy. I'm really excited for him. And I really think that Jordan Birch is going to be a guy. I don't really know where you're going to see him. Again, and I don't really know how they're going to utilize this defense differently than they're going to utilize it from last year. They got to make changes. What kind of changes are they going to make? What's their pressure situation? I've been really nerding out on Dan Lanning's pressure this year, and I don't know if you've seen this coaches clinic. I'll send you the link on it. It's a tremendous watch. And it's just this idea of he wants to put pressure on the quarterback from various angles and from different people. And maybe guys from you wouldn't expect, like an outside backer or a defensive end, maybe more like a corner or a safety or, the linebacker, coming creeping around the edge. And guys just and how he could create a 3 down front, but actually put pressure on a 4-man by adding a 4th man at the end. And where do you put that guy? And I think that's kind of a fun thing when you have a guy like Jordan Birch, because he's a guy, it feels like he's big enough to go inside. Like I said, I'm a big dude. I looked up to this guy. When he shook my hand, I was like, thank you, sir. And I mean, for real, I mean, these guys are kids, but for the most part, they're young men, but still, I mean, these guys are big dudes. And Popo as well. Popo's just such a solid frame. And that's what you need for your nose tackle. But I think Jordan Birch has a variety of different positions he can play, and that they might utilize him in that. I don't know if they're going to drop him back in coverage like they did KT, and they did Dorless a little bit last year. But I expect a big year from Dorless too. I expect big things from this defense. I hope if the defense improves, that everybody else, every other team improves on this thing, and you're going to have a really good team this year.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm in the camp of expecting big things like being a top defense in the Pac-12, but I expect big improvement.
Yes, that's what I want.
Yeah. That's what.
What did they rank last year in the Pac-12?
I mean, it depends on which metric you looked at, but they were second to last in passing yards allowed per game, like that.
Right.
That is just got to change.
And now the numbers were so gross. Now, the Georgia game and the Washington game,
and they were top 3 in terms of rushing yards allowed per game, but I think they were
they fell apart at the end with the freaking Morgan State game when they couldn't stop anybody from running the ball when everybody knew you're running the ball.
Yeah.
So when push came to shove at the end of the year, they kind of fell apart. And the one thing they were stronger in. But yeah, I knew their pass defense was terrible. I used to remember last year going through all the NCAA. I'd watched all of them, in the ranking thing. And I'd be like, oh, God, what page are we on? It's like, are we on the second? No, we're on the 3rd page?
Yeah, it was not pretty. Now, they were at 27.5 points per game allowed. That was 5th in the Pac-12. I'd like to see that get under 25
I think you need to be top 4 or 3 to be competitive in the Pac-12 this year. They're two good offenses this year.
Yeah. And 386 yards a game allowed passing, though 260. They actually moved up over the course of the year, probably because of that Oregon State game, frankly, and the Utah game. I think those 2 games kind of skewed the stats a little bit. The defense, first of all, played lights out against Utah. I mean, they allowed 10 points.
One of the best defensive games I've ever seen at Autzen.
Oh gosh, they were sensational. But that's what I want to see from this defense every week. They got pressure on Cam Rising. They forced him into turnovers. They didn't get beat over the top. They got off the field on 3rd and 4th down. They didn't get beat on the ground.
Turnovers.
And I just think that's what we're looking for here. That's kind of what we all had in our heads when Lanning and Lupoy came over together, and you look at their track records, it's like this is the defense that we expect to see. And that's a Utah offense, by the way, that knows how to score. They put up 43 points on a bad defense in USC. They put up 40 whatever it was in the Pac-12 championship game. So it's not like they didn't know how to score. The other piece of news that came out recently, Ryan, was the announcements. Pieces of news, I guess, were the announcements. English is fun. But you had a handful of guys announce they're leaving. Avante Dickerson, Darren Barkins, pair of defensive backs, Sir Mells on the defensive line, Harrison Taggart, at linebacker. I'm not forgetting one, am I?
There's been a few. I think the number is I heard 82 is our newest number of scholarships, or is it 80?
Right.
Okay.
And that's where my mind first went when I saw these guys were announcing that they were in the portal. Still, to this day, the only two transfers that have really shocked me were Maliki Matavau and Keith Brown. I think those are the
I
only
would
guys
agree.
to this point that have been like, whoa, I saw you taking a big jump and playing a major role in next year's team.
I would agree.
And now we don't have that. Dante Thornton a little bit, but not quite as much because he had a pretty small role when he was poised for a jump in 2022. Got beat out by Troy Franklin for attention and touches and whatnot, but had some great moments for sure. So I look at this latest slew of transfers, Ryan, and it's just what you said. Oregon is now under the scholarship limit. For all the people who are worried about, how are we going to get under the limit? What's going to happen? Like, this is exactly how it's going to happen. They've always had a plan. They've always had an idea. They've always known. And so defensive line, you got a bunch of depth. Cornerbacks, you lose two. I didn't have either in my projected depth chart, entering and during spring football here that I talked about here on the show. Harrison Taggart was way down, probably sixth on the depth chart at the linebacker position when you slide Jamal Hill in there. So I'm not worried about any of these guys. I think they're scholarship casualties, and you just have to get under that number. Now Oregon's got room to add players, which we know they need to add at least one at tight end. They might go add one at, a linebacker or wide receiver with Gary Bryant, something like that. But bottom line here, losing those guys who definitely had some talent and promise, but that's just what happens when you're at Oregon. You recruit at a high level. The guys who transfer out are going to have some hype coming out of high school. They're going to have some potential. They could go succeed elsewhere, but I'm not concerned at all that those guys are leaving the program.
No. And when we talked after the Keith Brown one, we were talking about, well, these last couple scholarships to 85 might really sting, might be kind of a rip the Band-Aid off moment. Well, now that we're there at this moment, it feels like that's not really the issue. Like you said, if you go back, it's really the Dante Thornton one, the Keith Brown one, I think are somewhat bigger. And then obviously
Matavau.
About Matavau, right. And I think, but even that one was like, okay, that's fine. When Maliki left, it was like, okay, that's fine. There's other guys in the tight end room or whatever. But I do think the transfer portal giveth and it taketh away. And there's a lot of times where I feel like it's not really indicative to the health of the program. I think it's a natural part of this. And I think actually a guy that really nailed it, if you guys really want some good content, there's the Mental Sweat Show. That's Ryan Walks podcast. If you want to hype that, it's great. It's great. And they've had some really quality guests on there. They had Jay Butterfield on, and Jay Butterfield talked about this, that he kind of like bought into maybe took the bait. I don't know exactly the wording he used, but he kind of bought into the allure of Oregon. He's like, this is too good of an offer to pass up on. I've got to go. And he didn't really catch his footing. He went through a variety of different coaches that were suiting his style, coaches that were not suiting his style, vice versa. But at the end of the day, he kind of left. But what it taught me was this idea that there's a lot of guys who probably see Oregon as one of their best offers on the table, and they're going to take it. And then they're going to get here and they're going to do the thing for a year, and they're not going to have that many expectations put on them. But then they're going to see going into the second year, I don't really see myself as being a part of this program. I don't see myself on the depth chart where I thought I was going to be. And surprise, surprise, you're going to an elite school. You're going to one of the better programs in the country, and you want to succeed at the highest level. And sometimes that's where you find out you're maybe not at that level. And the coaches are telling you maybe there's time to go. It's not as bad, obviously, as what you see with the situation with Dion. I heard there was he has 13 scholarship players left from last year's team. And he's like,
sounds like a good thing for Colorado.
I mean, that's the point. He went in there and told them that, the transfer portal's right over there. Go ahead and hit it. But my point being is that, you look at these guys and they think maybe, hey, I've done a full year. I mean, Sir Mells posted a thing saying, hey, what a year it's been. He came in, he had a picture of when he came into Oregon, picture now. He came in super doughy, super big and fluffy. He really never hit the weights in his life. He really never been on a weight program. He'd never been on a nutrition program. He'd never had people watch his calories. His mom makes that, his mom was bringing, all these sorts of recipes, mac and cheese and all sorts of stuff to the spring game tailgates and stuff. What do you think she's making him? So it's like this kid was just super doughy, super big. And people said, hey, if this kid's going to play, he's going to need to transform his body. He did. And the next picture of him, he's lean, mean fighting machine. He can go right now and play UNLV. I mean, and so the idea is like,
Las Vegas kid.
Yeah, and Vegas kid. So it's like this idea of like, these guys go to Oregon. They actually improve themselves for a year. They improve their stock for a little bit. And they get a little clout because they've been to Oregon. Now they're transferring from Oregon.
Right.
Just like we have this thing of, oh, we got the kid from Ole Miss. Yeah, we got the kid from Alabama. Oh, man. What about Fresno State? We got the kid from Oregon. But boom.
Yeah, that's a great
deal.
That is a fantastic point that I hadn't thought about, the way that, Butterfield framed it and that other players probably have, which is I might not play her, but I could take a shot, see if I can do it. And if not, I can transfer somewhere else. And then I completely agree with you on the clout thing. SIDs eat that sort of stuff up, right? And social media people to be able to say, oh, they got the Oregon transfer because that's, that O travels. We talked about it before on the recruiting front. It is a very well-known brand, and having that attached to you is certainly a benefit for a lot of these kids. Before we get to a fun question, Ryan, any looming thoughts out there that you wanted to air or discuss going into the spring game?
No, I think the spring game is really cool. I think there's certain schools that do it well and certain schools that don't. Like
Oregon does it well.
Oregon does it well. They do the troops. They do the Lane County Food Bank. They do other variety of other sports at the same time afterward, before. They've got the soccer game before, right next door. They've got a baseball game right after, right next door. They've got the whole complex. It's an event where they bring a lot of different alumni in. They bring a lot of different people in. A lot of times it's like, you have these different moments in time where you go back, homecoming, and now they've kind of created one for the spring, and they do a big thing for recruiting. Then they kind of try to showcase what it's like. The vibe is real there. And they really try to spruce it up. I mean, I used to go to the spring game when I was a kid where you just needed to show your Buymark card to get in. And there was 500 people in the stands. I remember them doing it one time. They did it in up here in Portland at like a high school field. Like there was some crazy stuff. Like the spring game was
it's a little bit bigger now.
It's big, and it should be, because now they've got television coverage and they've got flyovers. But I really love the salute the troops thing. I think some of the coolest uniforms in the past came from it. I love that one of the flying duck that they did. That's like one of my favorite helmets. I don't know why dude, it's so good. And then the whole salute the troops thing is really like authentic. And, there's a lot of vets that go to games. There's a lot of Oregon support with, the military, and there's a lot of military presence in Oregon. I mean, my family has a beach house in Rockaway. I can't tell you how much times I know people who are in the Coast Guard or anybody else. There's flyovers. They're doing it's a wild deal. So you have the situation where you get to actually really honor troops. You can't say no to that.
Of course.
It goes across the board. That's an automatic win. It's a home run. Fly the flag, baby. And then you get to have this thing where you get to exchange uniforms. And I mean, there were some really cool moments that they were doing during that time. And they've leaned back into that. But it's a huge win for the food bank. And again, we're in a country that's an absolute, bread and butter country, land of milk and honey. But people are starving. It's crazy. Kids are going hungry. I'm a public school teacher. I know kids come there for the breakfast. They get the lunch, and then they're hoping for the next meal, and then they're coming back for the breakfast the next morning. So,
right.
It's a really good thing. It's a quality event. But I mean, if you look at Seattle, for example, I mean, holy crap, they can't do anything to get people in the stadium for that. And I heard,
they just don't put it. They just don't put as much effort.
They don't put
as much of a priority into it.
There's maybe more competition. I heard a guy from up there saying, we've got this, that, and the other going against us. And I was like, okay, that's fine, but you can at least try to do something. And this is a team that won 10 games last year. 11 games.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, some places just don't, put as much pomp and circumstance and excitement into it. And it's not ultimately determinative of how great you're going to be as a program, but I'd prefer you have the energy, because I like the community aspect of sports. I like people coming together, watching football, supporting the kids, supporting good local causes, and all that sort of stuff. Ryan, we're closing with a fun question here. This came from Randall yesterday via the Twitter DMs. And by the way, ask all the questions you got about the spring game. YouTube comments, Twitter at Smalls_55 or at Locked On Ducks. Those are the handles. Ryan, this one is a bit off topic, but right in your wheelhouse.
Love it.
Side question for the show. is Pacific Dunes the greatest public course in America?
Ooh, this is so in my freaking wheelhouse.
It is right. We could go for 30 minutes
Easy.
on this.
I can go for 30 minutes on each course.
The short answer is no.
Okay.
I don't even think it's the greatest public course at Bandon. I think it's number 2. I am a trails guy personally.
I love that. That's a left fielder. I love that.
I am a huge trails guy. I like Pacific a lot.
I love it.
Always gets the highest rating, but I am a trails guy. Golfers know what we're talking about right now. Okay, non-golfers have already turned us off, and that's all right.
It's fine. At the end of the show, real quick, what's your top 5? How do you rank those?
Of the courses at Bandon?
Yeah, so trails.
So I haven't played Sheep Ranch.
Okay, so top 4.
So top 4. I go trails, Pacific. It's tough. It's really, really tough. I go Bandon and then Old Mac.
Okay. So yeah, so like I've played them all, and Sheep Ranch is fun. It's very whimsical. On a really good day, it's really fun. On a bad day, it's really bad, like the worst.
Like the wind and the weather and whatnot.
Oh my God. I mean, I had like 65, 70-degree gusts. I've never even felt that wind in my life. And I'm golfing. I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we even here? Everybody just hard. It's Pacific. No, it's probably,
greatest public course in America. I mean, Pebble Beach is public.
Was it a West Coast question or?
No, it's just in America. Is Pacific Dunes the greatest public course in America?
In the country, there's got to be so many better. I mean, Pebble. Well, there's a variety of them that probably rank higher.
Just go in the whole Monterey area. Pebble, Spyglass, Pasatiempo is really good. Spanish Bay. I mean, you can. And by the way, don't get me wrong. Pacific is probably, if you're talking public courses, probably top 20 and at least top 30, but probably top 20.
But it's what you want out of a course. Like, do you want sea views? Do you want link style? Do you want this, or do you want pristine this or pristine that? Like, in the valley type stuff. I don't know. I love it. I think Bandon Dunes is the best. It's my favorite personally. The original Bandon Dunes. I go Bandon Dunes number 1. I go Pacific number 2. I go somewhere between trails and sheep on a good day. And then I rank Old Mac at the bottom. I think Old Mac, it beats the hell out of me constantly. The first 3 holes are absolutely awesome. And then you get over the hill, and then it's just like a moonscape. And I just get lost in it. I also have played it on the worst weather days. Every year I go, for whatever reason, Old Mac is.
All the worst weather days I've had at Bandon Dunes have been Old Mac.
So that also makes me kind of like think it's not that great. I've had amazing days at Bandon. We play Bandon twice usually because it's the consensus favorite because it's the OG. But yeah, walking up, 16 with the sun setting. No, you've got 17, 18 left. Buddy, it is so pure.
So good.
So pure. So thank you so much for letting me think about Bandon. I literally think about Bandon Dunes at least one time during the day. It could just be a fleeting moment.
I think of it every day. I think of it once a week. I play with random people out here in Utah, and I'll just ask them, like, have you played golf in Oregon before? They'll be like, no, I've never been out there. I'm like, you got to go to Bandon. I'm telling you,
it's a must.
You've got to go to Bandon.
You got to take a caddy, and you got to
get a caddy. Ask him questions. Listen to them. They know what they're talking about. Rian Winter knows what he's talking about. He'll be at the spring game. Check him out on YouTube and Twitter at SportsChat503. Ryan, as always, you're the man.
Thank you so much. I'm like your duck caddy.
Yes, indeed, you are. Appreciate everyone listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy the spring game. Back with you here on Monday, and until then, go Ducks.